This is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. If you're just tuning in, we are going behind the headlines in the weekly news recap with Chicago Tribune political reporter Alice Yin, WBEZ investigative reporter Dan Mihalopoulos, and Christian Farr, reporter for NBC5 Chicago. We're still online on YouTube and Facebook if you prefer to watch. Over to you, Alice, because former Vice President and Indiana Governor Mike Pence was in town this week. He was speaking before about 300 people at the Union League Club of Chicago. Tell us why he was in town and what he had to say.
Yeah, I believe he was, promoting his book tour and I guess trying to get himself out there as he thinks about his plans for 2024 and beyond. He's kind of like, I guess, presenting this weird divide in the Republican Party where they know that, Trump is meeting with some very bad people and they should disavow those people, but they don't know what to do about him. They are afraid to cross him, but I think they're a little less afraid than they maybe were earlier this year or a year or two ago. It remains to see what he's going to announce, but he definitely is, trying to make his rounds.
Well, did he at least give any hint about whether he's going to run for president?
I believe all he said was wait till after the holidays, and we'll see.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
What did Mike Pence say though about Trump's Mar-a-Lago dinner with Kanye West, who now we know goes by Ye? He had dinner with Ye and Nick Fuentes, who've both become notorious for their anti-Semitic comments. Did he say anything more?
He disavowed those two figures, but he kind of was like threading the line with, directly criticizing Trump. He, in his book, which he still stands by, he says, I don't think Trump is an anti-Semite. I don't think he's a racist, et cetera, et cetera. And though that quote might go on to haunt him later, whatever his plans are, but he's standing by it.
You guys following this stuff? It's hard not to see all of the Ye just keeps trending for random things, but both Ye and Nick Fuentes, they have strong Chicago ties, right?
Oh, big time. Kanye said he was going to go at DEFCON 5. That's what he said he was going to do.
Sure did.
He's clearly doing that right now. Being connected to Nick Fuentes. I don't know. It's troubling. I think Kanye would have kind of led to that Chicago legend kind of thing because of his music, his lyrics, the things he kind of stood for. I don't know. I think people are still troubled by just what they hear from him. I don't know what this means to be connected to Donald Trump at this time. Now you've got, Mike Pence commenting on that. The red wave didn't happen that we thought was going to happen. It's an interesting political time.
Yeah. And for, anyone not familiar, Nick Fuentes grew up in the western suburbs, graduated in 2016 from Lyons Township High School. He was student council president, but he's a far-right video streamer who's been kicked off nearly every major social media platform for hate speech violations. We know. I think a lot of us woke up this morning to the update that Ye has also now been suspended.
By Elon Musk himself, apparently.
Right.
Who's
Shocking.
now the arbiter and the owner. Nick Fuentes, though, it's not just the anti-Semitism. I've listened to some of the comments, very misogynistic as well. Very young guy, but has risen to prominence by saying some of the most inflammatory things you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then shows up at Mar-a-Lago with Kanye.
And Trump praised him, right? He liked Nick Fuentes, thought he was a great guy, but had no idea anything about him,
Yeah.
And so what does that say about, a person who's running for president?
So, Christian, as we're discussing the rise of anti-Semitism, I know that your wife, who's Karen Jordan over at ABC7, she talked to former Fox 32 reporter Larry Yellen this week. He shared his own experience with this. Fill us in.
Yeah, just the background to that. And again, this is for my wife. She's the one who did the story.
Shout out to Karen.
Yeah, shout out to Karen Jordan, ABC7. She works for the enemy. But did I say that?
It was a great story.
It was a great story. And Larry Yellen, if anybody doesn't remember him, fantastic reporter at Fox 32, an attorney, but just whenever you ended up on a story with Larry Yellen, you stood up a little bit more, you looked around a little bit more because I felt like I was in the presence of royalty. He was a mentor. I considered him a fantastic guy, but retired some years ago. His parents, he's from Waukegan, and his parents are buried in a Waukegan cemetery, and it was desecrated. And swastikas and things of that nature. And so he was outspoken about this. There's he wanted people to really know after this happened. They've kind of cleaned up those headstones after those anti-Semitic symbols were placed there. And, he wanted people to really know that he grew up in this community. He helped this community. His parents helped this community. And a lot of the people who were impacted by this, the families, came to his bar mitzvah when he was a child, celebrated with him. I believe his father was in World War II, was a B-17 bombardier. And so these are people who really helped, part of that greatest generation, help shape this country. And, here you are laid to rest. You should lay to rest in peace. And then to have this happen is just really shocking.
It really is tragic.
And I'm glad that he spoke out and said something. He's been taking an active role in politics, I believe, since he's retired. But he was a sharp reporter, fantastic mentor to many of us who kind of came up in Chicago news. And so I'm glad he was able to speak out, and I'm glad that people paid attention to the story.
Well, before we take a quick pause, I'm coming back to you, Dan, because, where there's anti-Semitism, there's often white supremacy. This week, the sentencing of the head of the Oath Keepers made national news. Here in Illinois, a Naperville woman was sentenced to 18 months probation for participating in that January 6th uprising. Details?
Yeah, Dan Frankowski of Naperville was described as an online follower of the Oath Keepers, that violent seditionist, insurrectionist group. And she said she was in the Capitol for 11 minutes on January 6, 2021, during that uprising that was squashed. But she got 18 months probation and 100 hours community service. I thought the most moving part to me was she was messaging one of her other fellow rioters and said, if Trump doesn't get this done, we are going to jail. But as some will point out, she is not going to prison after all. And so some people look at that and have communicated with me when I tweeted that story that they think that it's another example of kind of soft treatment of people that participated in the events of January 6, 2021 and wanted to change the outcome of a free and fair election.
Can't believe we're almost at 2 years from that date. Anyway, we'll take a quick pause. That's WBEZ investigative reporter Dan Mihalopoulos, Christian Farr of NBC5 Chicago, and Chicago Tribune's Alice Yin. Much more weekly news recap to come, but first back over to Lisa, because a national rail strike has been averted.